So I got up, I went down and did a full workout. It's the first time in probably a month
Yeah.
that I've done a full workout.
Thanks
Good.
to your dog for
Thanks to
waking
my
up
dog
at
for
an
waking me up. And
insane
then
hour of the night.
welcome back, everybody, to the Balance for Life podcast. Our goal is to inspire you and motivate you to dive into a journey of self-discovery, find the secrets to happiness and lasting success.
Yeah, and if you like what you hear, don't forget to follow us, like, comment, subscribe, rate, hit that 5-star review button, whatever
All the
things
things.
that you can do
All
on
the
whatever
things.
platform you're on.
Yep.
And join us on social media where we, I think, are starting to become more active now.
A little more active. Yeah.
And we're
Getting back
about
out
to
there.
become much more active,
Yes.
I think. So we've got lots of awesome stuff planned. We're going to do short little videos. So short little motivational videos. If 40 minutes is beyond your attention span,
Yeah.
these videos are going to be perfect for you.
It's okay. Sometimes 40 minutes is beyond my attention span, too. I have to break the episodes up as I listen.
Oh, yeah. We have tangents, as our listeners are well aware, because of our attention span. But on social media, we are on @Balance4Life podcast number 4 on everywhere except Twitter.
Which is at Adam and Perry.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
We're also on YouTube.
Yep.
Search up Balance number 4 Life, and you'll find the videos there if you would like to watch the videos. I think I was gonna make a comment about your beard, and now your beard is gone.
I know.
And maybe that's why I was
I
thrown
think I
off.
had one
with the
episode with a
question.
beard because we didn't do an episode for like 2 months.
Well, I saw you 2 days ago with it was a pretty sweet beard, and I think
Yeah.
I was gonna make a comment about how I can't grow the mustache, and that's why.
I was wondering why you
This
shave
so-
your mustache and nothing else.
Yeah. I'm just going for the old school.
Back on topic.
Back on topic. So we wanted to talk a little bit today, and this is something that we've been discussing in our carpool to band practice. So for those of you that don't know, we send out messages to everybody. So I think everybody that follows us on social media should know by now. We're in a band, and we carpool to band practice. So it's a good time for us to be able to discuss different topics and things that we want to talk about with you guys, and things that kind of have helped us in our journey along this progress. So one of the things that we were talking about a few weeks ago, we were talking about different topics, and the idea of being more open-minded came up. And I think that's kind of a hot topic nowadays. You hear it all the time on social media specifically, because I think a lot of people that are really passionate about it, and I would say even beyond passionate to the extremist level, are typically a lot less likely to talk to you about stuff like this in person, and they're more likely to talk about it on social media. So we wanted to dive into this a little bit and talk about being more open-minded. So first thing we wanted to discuss is, why is it important to be open-minded? And I think you've got some great experiences to share, Perry.
Yeah, I have a couple of quick experiences. And, I grew up in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, often called the Mormon Church. And I pretty much always believed it, And then I got to a certain age in high school where I had a friend who challenged my beliefs, and in like a respectful way. It wasn't, he wasn't a jerk about it, but one of the things that he said to me was, I think that you believe what you believe because your parents do, and you just, that's the reason you believe it. You don't believe it for yourself. And I realized that he was right. And that was like my first, I think, step toward trying to be an open-minded person. So I decided, hey, I don't want to just believe this because I've been told to believe it. I want to find out for myself if it's something I want to believe in. And so I actually started to study it and to research it. I started to pray about it. And I would pray and ask God, is this right? Is this what I should be doing? And without going into any details, I got to the point where I felt that God answered my prayers and that it was right, and that at least it was right for me. So I have a firm belief in my religion, because I have made an attempt to be open-minded about it and the opposite point of view, that maybe it isn't true, right?
Mhm.
And I kind of had that journey. So fast forward a few years, and I decided to become a missionary for 2 years to teach people about my religion. And I feel like I was already trying to be open-minded, but I had this realization while I was there that if I wasn't willing to hear and consider somebody else's beliefs that maybe even conflicted with mine, why should they be open-minded about what I was trying to teach them?
Mhm.
So I took that attitude with everybody I spoke with. I remember running into a Jehovah's Witness at one point who, was like really wanting to prove us, show us Bibles and verses in the Bible that proved that their religion was right and ours was wrong. And we actually ended up having a really interesting and fun conversation about like, well, here's what you believe, here's what we believe. There's actually some similarities there. Here's where it's different, And I got to the point where I realized I can talk with somebody who has a totally different viewpoint than me, and I can learn something from them. And we can share ideas, and we can recognize where we're the same and where we're different, and we can be okay with being different too. So I basically took that as kind of a mantra for my life, to just try to hear what other people have to say and find out what can I learn from that, where can that help me, and it's okay if like it's not the same.
Mhm.
It's okay to have different beliefs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think my experience with it has been kind of similar, kind of different. So when I was in high school and I was going through that, I was never necessarily challenged by other people with my belief. So I was also raised in the same church, typically often called the Mormon Church, but the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And about the time I got into high school, I started to recognize things that I think a lot of people in the world today recognize, the hypocrisy and kind of, you see people one way in school or at work or whatever, and then you go see them at church and they act completely different. I know I had several friends who would not be doing the best things throughout the week, and even some of them that would come to church and participate in ordinances and probably not the way they should have been. And so it was tough for me to kind of balance, and as I was going through this, I kind of came to a personal self-realization that I had just been following my parents' belief forever. And so it really started to kind of eat away at me a little bit, and ended up actually leaving the church for a little while. Not like officially taking my name off the records, I guess, but emotionally I was not invested at all and wanted kind of nothing to do with it. And I remember having a conversation with my dad one time, and I made the comment that why would I want to be involved in something like that if everywhere I go, everything I do, people are judging me. And my dad, who was actually, well, I don't think he was a bishop yet, but he became a bishop later on. But he made the comment and the argument that has stuck with me over 20 years now, that just because the people are not living it doesn't mean the gospel is not true. And so that kind of, I guess it didn't really change my behaviors at the time, it didn't change my beliefs at the time, but it did implant something into my brain of, just because people don't behave or just because you see things a certain way doesn't necessarily make something wrong. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like that, as I've gone through this whole journey, so when I started to kind of redact my belief or challenge my personal beliefs, I started to explore a lot of different options. I had a cousin who was marrying a pagan girl, and so I started looking into pagan religion. I started looking into different belief systems, different, like, even beyond the scope of Christianity, and just looking at everything that I possibly could and trying to just gain as much knowledge as I possibly could, which I feel like that's what this life is all about, right? And so I started just exploring all these different things, and I feel like that as I've kind of come full circle has taught me to be a little bit more considerate when I talk to other people. So now, through all of that experiences and through several of the jobs that I've had, I have been blessed to meet people from all walks of life. And it's really helped me to be a little bit more understanding when they challenge what I believe or when they challenge my religion. It helps me to be a little bit more understanding with where they're coming from, and so I can react in a more compassionate way. And so I think having that open-minded and having that broader knowledge, expanding yourself, like you mentioned, helps us to be a little bit more compassionate when we talk to other people. So regardless of which end of the spectrum or which end of, I guess you can't even really call it a spectrum because there's so many different directions you can go. But regardless of what area in the world you're talking about, you can be more compassionate. You can be more understanding of other people's opinions and beliefs.
One of my favorite analogies is you wouldn't stop going to a gym because there are out of shape people there trying to get in shape. So why would you stop going to church because there are people there who aren't living the teachings perfectly? Because nobody is. Nobody is perfect. I also wanted to, I don't want you to take this as like challenging something you said, because I really don't mean it that way. And I don't think you meant what I'm challenging right now. So I hear often that Utah Mormons are so judgmental and so hypocritical. And I like to challenge people who say that by saying it's not religious people. It's not Utah people. It's people. Everybody in any group, you can say that about that. I think as humans, we have this natural tendency to be hypocritical. We all are. Everybody is a hypocrite at some point or in some way. And so, people give this like stereotype to Utahns that I have personally felt like isn't true more than any other group. I think people are just like that, right? And again, that's me trying to be like open-minded to the fact that a lot of these people are probably trying to do their best. And so I've seen the same things like growing up, people doing one thing outside of church and then they go to church and you're like, wait, I thought, you don't seem like you really are, and I just had to realize that like maybe they're giving it their best effort, and maybe I should stop and think about like the things that I did during the week that don't line up with,
Exactly. And I think that's kind of the whole point with all of it. And as I ended up coming back to the church when we were pregnant with our first child. I decided that the way that I was living my life was not in the best interest of bringing a child into the world. And so I decided some changes need to be made, and one of those changes was to re-explore my relationship with religion. And so I ended up coming back to the church, and it's interesting you bring that point up, because people that I met after I came back into the church, when they found out that I was Mormon, would make comments like that about how judgmental Mormons are, and they're not open-minded, and they don't do these things. And I would just sit and think to myself, it's funny that you can say that to me. And I got into a debate with a kid that I was working with. I was a wildland firefighter, and so we spent a lot of time together, driving 12, 15 hours in our trucks, and then spending time out on the fire lines and camping. Like, we were together for 2 weeks at a time. And so I got to know these guys really well, and some of them became like family. And I remember having a discussion with one of them, and in the beginning, it was a really good, expanding discussion, and we could share our beliefs and our opinions. But as it got deeper into the discussion, I started to realize that he was not interested in my point of view. And so at one point we were talking, and this is basically what ended the conversation. Is I said, okay, do you believe in God? And he said, no. And I said, okay, so have you ever read the Bible? And he said, no. I said, have you ever read the Book of Mormon? He said, no. I said, okay, so how can you personally say that you know something is not true if you've never actually looked into what they believe?
Mm-hmm.
And so that to me was kind of a transition phase and a way that I could look at things and say, I was probably not the best kid in high school, and probably I was a judgmental person. And I looked at people at church on Sundays and I would think, why are you even here? I was one of those kind of Mormons. And because of my experiences, I was able to look at the outside perspective of that and say, okay, well, this is my experience and this is why I believe what I believe. What have you done?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so it's funny you bring that up, because I was considered one of the judgmental Mormons after all of this experience that I had.
Yeah.
But I remember one of the things that kind of, even from that, expanded me, because I was being judgmental with him even, right? In our interaction, I was saying, well, if you have not tried to believe what I believe, then how can we even have a discussion?
Right.
And so from that, I remember hearing a quote, and I think, I'm not even going to say who I think it was because I don't want to screw that up. But I remember hearing one of the general authorities,
so leaders of our church,
talking about going to church on Sundays. And maybe it was in a social media quote or something, but it talked about people who need to go to church on Sundays. And it was kind of this idea of, if you were out drinking all night on Saturday, you should be in church.
Yeah.
If you were at home having family home evening, you should be at church. And I can't remember if it was the same quote or a different quote, but somewhere along the lines I heard, kind of like you said with the gym, but this is a way to look at it for me, is you don't go to the doctor when you're well.
Yeah.
Right? You go to the doctor when you're sick.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what the gospel is. That's exactly what the church is. And regardless of what religion you are, that's exactly what that is for you, is a healing. Mm-hmm. It's a way that you can improve yourself and expand yourself and gain knowledge. And so I had to look at it as, I don't need to worry about why other people are here.
Yeah.
I don't need to worry about why other people are not here. You have your own personal healing path and your own spirituality, right. And I have mine, and that's what this is for me. This is my way of renewing my relationship and healing and being there for what I believe.
Yeah.
So
we're going to get into how to be open-minded with each of our pillars in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to just point out that we are not trying to convert anybody to our religion or to religion in general.
No.
If you go to the same church as us, this podcast episode is for you. If you go to a different church, this is for you. If you don't go to church at all, you don't believe in church or in religion, this is for you.
Yeah.
Because being open-minded is really important no matter what. And I want to also point out that being open-minded is being willing to consider that what you believe is not true,
mm-hmm.
while at the same time being willing to consider that it is. Because I've seen people who think that they're super open-minded because suddenly they're willing to challenge their belief system to the point that they don't even consider they might have been right in the first place.
Yeah.
And there's misinformation about everything. There is a ton of misinformation about our church. Outright lies, partial truths mixed with lies, taken out of context.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think is really sad is when somebody comes across information like that about anything that challenges their belief system, and they latch onto it without accepting the possibility that it might be false.
Yeah.
It might be a lie.
Yeah.
And I've seen that. I've seen it time and time again with people that I know who basically do like a 180 on their belief system in what I think is not a positive way, because they thought they were being open-minded, but they being open-minded to what they originally believed.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to challenge what you believe. It's also really important to challenge what's challenging your belief.
Mhm.
Like you have to do both at the same time.
Exactly, and I think, well, Skylar, our drummer in our band, said it perfectly a few weeks ago when we were kind of talking. He was like, I can't.
Basically, he said, don't be against
Yeah.
anything before something.
Exactly, and that's kind of the stance that I've taken in the last few years, and I thought he worded it perfectly. Is if you want to come and talk to me about all the things that you don't believe, then it's probably going to be a lot shorter conversation than if you want to come and share with me the things that you do believe
Definitely.
and be open to the things that I believe too.
Yeah. I don't understand the position that people take of trying to prove that what I believe is wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I don't do that with anybody else's religious beliefs or any beliefs at all.
Mhm.
I am willing to share what I believe that might be different than what you believe, but I am not going to tell you why what you believe is wrong.
Exactly.
Now, like, I might have moments of, like, humanity and weakness where look, you might read something I've said on social media that contradicts what I've just said, but that's my goal, at least.
Yeah,
That's what I try to do.
And like we said, we're all human.
Yeah.
And we make mistakes, and we're all judgmental, we're all hypocrites, and that's
We can try to be better.
something that we need to try and do better with as
Yeah,
well. So
exactly.
again, we are all on this journey together, and we hope that you will join us as we try and improve ourselves.
Exactly.
So, okay.
I feel like we've kind of already talked about being open-minded spiritually.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything else you want to say about it. For me, I guess the only other thing, maybe even to just kind of sum it up, is there is something that you can learn from any religion.
Mhm.
Look, and I've seen like things that people point out like what's wrong with religion in general, what's wrong with specific religions. I don't care. There are good things about every religion as well. Every religion as well.
Mhm.
There are good things about, like anything you can learn about, there's something positive you can take away from it.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with that. And I think so basically just the last story that I wanted to add to this is one of the things that's really shaped my perspective spiritually is, so in high school I had one of my best friends in high school. He was one of the greatest guys I've ever met, most genuine, kind, caring, compassionate people I've ever met. And about it was 2009, Easter 2009, and got a phone call Easter Sunday, and he had accidentally overdosed. He'd mixed pain medication and anxiety medication and ended up dying from that. And so went to his funeral, went to the wake. He had a traditional Irish wake, which was a lot of fun.
Sorry, my cat's scratching on the couch. And it's the basement couch. It's not like whatever, but
Yeah. But it was really interesting to see that whole process. And as I kind of, so we had lost touch a little bit since high school. I mean, we saw each other probably at least a couple of times a year. Talked on the phone a few times a year. But we'd not been as close as we were in high school, obviously. We were both married. Well, he was divorced and getting remarried. But I was married, had kids.
Mhm.
And so we'd kind of, just been a little bit more distanced over the last few years. And so as I kind of learned some things about his progress in life and the things that he believed, it started to challenge my belief. And one of the things that I came up with is, if somebody doesn't believe in my concept of heaven, why would I want them to go there? Like we talk a lot about death, I think, and as we get older, it happens a lot more. Lost my grandma a couple weeks ago, and that was kind of tough. But we talk about it a lot, and it seems like whenever we lose somebody close to us, kind of the go-to phrase is they're in a better place. And we always want to talk about, especially if you've ever been to a traditional Mormon funeral, we always talk about heaven and where they are. And it occurred to me that somebody that doesn't believe in what I believe, or somebody, so to get a little bit specific, he believed in this Celtic tradition of Tir na nog. And basically it's an island that so far on the west, it's just off of the side of the map, and so you can't see it, you don't know it's there, and the only way to get there is to take this lifelong journey of learning and growth, or to be invited by your ancestors that are already there. And so I started thinking about his belief that heaven is this island, it's like a tropical paradise, whatever, and kind of what I perceive heaven to be. And I was like, well, if he has lived his whole life thinking one way, he's lived a good life, how is he going to be happy in my perception of what heaven is?
Mm-hmm.
And so that started to kind of challenge me and eat at me a little bit. And I kind of came to the realization, like you said, that there are things about every belief system, about every religion, about every spirituality that are good and that are correct. And I don't believe that you can ever tell somebody that they are wrong in what they believe.
Yeah. I think telling someone they're wrong is just the wrong approach, right? Like, it should be, what do you believe? Here's what I believe. What can we learn from each other?
Mm-hmm.
I think that should be the approach to any conversation about religion, politics, just whatever, right?
Yeah. So I think the key with spirituality is just being open. So I've mentioned to you one of the things that I do. My kids are starting to get a little bit older. I have one that'll be 16 soon. One that's 12. He's going to be 13 in August. So I've got some kids that are kind of coming to that age where they are starting to challenge that belief. They're starting to challenge what they've done with mom and dad their whole life, which I encourage, right? My oldest daughter, when she started to question things, she would come to me and ask questions, and I would try and be open with her, and I would try and talk to her about some of my experiences and why I believe what I believe. But one of the things that I've tried to do with my kids is when they start coming to me with questions, I'll say, look, here's what I believe, and here's why I believe what I believe. But you have to find your own belief. Mm-hmm. And so I actually have, because spirituality is pretty high on my list, faith is actually the top of my value star. But spirituality is a huge thing for me. Aside from religion, just being a spiritual person is a huge thing for me. And so I have taken it upon myself to kind of study several different spiritual pathways. And so I have books on Viking religion. I have the Poetic Edda. I have the Samurai book. I have books on Ramtha. I have just different spiritualities. Mm-hmm. And so I have probably 8 or 9 different spiritual paths in books that you can read. And so when my kids come to me and start asking me questions, I'll say, look, here's what I believe, and I'll give them books to support that. I'll give them evidence to support what I believe, and I'll say, but you have to find your own way. And so I will give them all of the other books that I have at the same time. I'll say, look, read them all, pick which one you think is the most right, and go study it. And if you find that that's not something you believe down the road, then you can pivot.
Yeah.
And you can find something
maintain
else.
What you learned from it that was positive, right?
Yeah.
Like, hold on. Anything you learn, take the positive things that resonate with you, and that, and hold on to those. Keep them as part of you. Yeah.
So I think the best way to maintain open-mindedness spiritually is just to go about it in that way of don't be against something, be for something. Mm-hmm. And so pick something that you believe in, chase it, follow it, explore it. If you find somewhere along the line that it doesn't line up with your values, then you can pivot, but still take the positives from it, because there's positive in everything.
For sure.
So that's my 2 cents on spiritual open-mindedness.
There we go. Your 5-minute 2 cents. I'm just kidding. I don't know how long it was.
It was probably longer than that, honestly.
So, moving into the other pillars with physical, I think the main thing that we were talking about before, starting the episode was there are all these ideas out there about the right way to diet, the right way to exercise, the right way to get in shape. Mm-hmm. And the conclusion that I've come to is there isn't a right way, because our bodies are all different. Our needs are all different. Some people can't have dairy because of dietary issues, right? Like, we're all different. So what I thought of was there's this ad that I see sometimes. I don't even know who this guy is, but he's like, super jacked, like in really good shape, and his main thing when the ad pops up is like, if you're eating salads every day, stop, do this now. And then like I skip the ad so I don't know the rest of what he says. Like that's what he says by the time the skip button shows up on YouTube. So I don't know what his spiel is, but I just think it's funny to tell people like, don't eat salads. Like, okay.
Yeah.
I personally love salads, and I've never been like overweight, but 5-6 months ago I was, the most overweight I've ever been, and I've lost over 15 pounds over like last 6 months by exercising, eating huge salads, like several days a week, like not every day, but 3 or 4 days a week. I will get a huge bowl of salad, and it will have lettuce, spinach, bacon bits. Like I don't, I put dressing in it. Like I'm not trying to only eat healthy stuff, but I'm trying to get like peas, kidney beans, just like good things in my body, right? So I think the same thing with your physical health. Like take what works for you, what you like, be willing to challenge what you're doing. Someone I know who's a PA and knows a lot about physical health was saying, oh, don't eat like more than this much of like fruit and stuff because of all the sugars. And I'm like, look, hey, if you want to get like really carved and get a 6-pack, what you're saying I'm sure is totally true. That's not for me.
Yeah.
I think I even said something like that. I'm like, I will never do that because I don't care that much about getting a 6-pack. Like I want to be healthy, but I also want to be happy, and I cannot cut fruit out of my diet and be happy. Those just don't go together. Yeah. So now, like, I've maybe cut back on my fruit some. I try to eat more vegetables, and in doing so, I eat less of other things that I maybe was eating too much of. But I think you should always be careful of like never eat this anymore, right? And there are certain things that I will never eat, so I'm kind of like contradicting myself, right?
Yeah.
I'll never have alcohol. I've decided I'm never going to.
There you go.
But I'm not. But like other people can have alcohol and they be fine with it, right? And it's not gonna like ruin their health if they have it in moderation. So I guess that's my point. Is like just be open minded about what people are saying. Take what works for you and leave out what doesn't. That's fine.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's exactly right. And I think everything that you've said kind of just reiterates the title of our podcast, right? We're not here to tell you this is how you should be dieting. We're not here to tell you this is how you should be exercising. You can go out there on social media, you can go out there on websites, you can sign up for email lists, you can talk to trainers, you can talk to all different life coaches and all different kinds of people, and they will tell you the one and only way to lose weight, the one and only way to be more physically healthy. The problem is a lot of them have a different idea of what that is. I see things all the time about cold showers are better for you. And then I see things that say hot showers are better for you. It kind of depends on what you're going for, I guess.
Right. Are you wanting to open your pores or close them?
Yeah. I see things that talk about how certain types of exercises, some people are super into CrossFit. And they say that that's the only way that you can get fit. You can't do it any other way. And some people say don't do cardio. And some people say do more cardio. And some people say eat more salad. Some people say eat less salad. And I think the key that we are trying to accomplish here is finding the balance. Finding that, okay, so I do want to be healthy. I do want to eat more healthy foods. But do I really want to give up that, like, binge eating candy with my wife on the couch watching a movie?
I don't.
Right? Like, do I want to give up that time with her because I'd rather be at the gym?
Right.
Or do I want to give up something that I enjoy, right? Do I want to stop eating Twixes because they're
definitely not
bad for me, right? Like, I don't want to give up something. I want to explore what I can do to be more healthy. And so again, I think it just goes back to don't be against anything before something. And so before getting more healthy, before exercising, but don't let that take away from your happiness.
I feel like, look, if I'm putting in some time exercising, and I'm eating a huge salad, I can veg out on the
Mhm.
couch at night, like eating candy or ice cream or whatever while watching a movie because I've earned it.
Yeah.
Like that's
Exactly.
so.
Exactly. Well, and I like my physical goal, what I kind of told myself when I started setting my values and goals, my physical goal is I don't want to get tired. I don't want to get winded chasing my kids around. I want to be able to play with my kids without getting exhausted.
Mhm.
And so, whatever I need to do to get to that point, if that means that I work out 2 or 3 days a week and I can eat whatever I want, so be it.
Yeah.
Right? We talk about fasting, we talk about all these different things. As long as I'm doing moderation with all of them and I can spend the time with my family, that's what it's all about.
For sure.
So,
Well, let's talk a little bit about mental health.
Yeah.
The thing that comes to mind for me with being open-minded is we've talked about this before. There's kind of this difference between like our generation and maybe our parents' generation when it comes to having a therapist,
Mhm.
talking about your feelings. Like, I feel like our generation is more open to that, and I think the generation after that, us, is much more open to that.
Absolutely.
I have had life-saving experiences talking with a therapist, and my parents basically were like of the belief that like therapy does not work, like for whatever reasons, like they basically feel like there's better ways, there's other ways to
Mhm.
I don't know, process what you're going through, I guess. And for me, when our daughter passed away, I hadn't really thought of like meeting a therapist before that. Maybe I had, I don't know. But someone recommended a certain therapist, and my wife and I went together, and it saved my life. And so my point with that is like, look, there maybe are therapists out there that will not work for you. If you go and you see a therapist and you feel like it's the opposite of productive, don't give up therapy, give up that therapist. Like,
Yeah.
look for one that works better for you.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, like, for everybody, if you're willing to put in some work, there is a therapist out there who can help you and improve yourself. And so, you know, be open to things that maybe you've always thought would not help your mental health, like talking to a friend, talking to a professional. Just be willing to challenge your belief system that, like, I need to bottle this in and I need to just pull up my pants and get through it.
I'm a man, right?
Yeah.
I think that's one of the common things, especially nowadays, that's starting to get challenged a lot more. Is this idea that masculine, right? You just have to be a man, suck it up, go to work, deal with it. But you're seeing a lot more research now about how men are much more likely to commit suicide. Men are much more likely to get involved in drugs and alcohol, and are much more likely to be have certain addictions, right? Like, it's this idea that we are just supposed to suck it up, deal with it, and move on with life because that's our job.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, we need to be more open to the idea that there's help.
I think that talking about your feelings is masculine, and listening is masculine. So
Absolutely.
that's my
Absolutely.
little 2 cents on that.
Yeah, so I think basically everything that you said is kind of on par with my thoughts on it. One thing that I wanted to add, though, is, you know, you talk a lot about therapy. So we've started to experience ADHD with my youngest daughter now. So we dealt with it with my son for almost 10 years probably. I started to notice it when he was really too small to diagnose. But we tried to find any way that we could possibly avoid medication. Because I remember when I was a kid what that meant, right?
Yep.
When we were kids in the 90s, ADD was just, there was 2 approaches to it. One, it went undiagnosed and you were just labeled a naughty kid, which was me, or you were pumped full of Ritalin and Adderall, and they gave you as much as they possibly could and turned people into zombies. Like, took away any emotion, took away anything like that. And so we really wanted to avoid that. So we went to therapy. We got him into karate. We got him into soccer. We got him into monster trucks. We spent time outdoors. I took him out. The last time I went bow hunting was probably 5 years ago, and I took him one day. But we tried so hard to find different outlets with music and everything else. And I think when he was in about second or third grade is when his teacher came to us and said he is educationally, learning wise, he is below the special needs students. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of the triggering point for us to say, okay, what we're doing is not working. So we need to find a different way. And I really liked at that time, we went to his pediatrician and I voiced my concerns for medication, and he was able to reassure me that nowadays things are different and ADHD is something that's handled a lot differently now. So they, instead of just giving you the highest dose, they actually start with the lowest dose. And then if that's not working, then they'll pump it up in small increments until they find just the right balance where you don't lose who that person is, but they can shut their brain off and be able to concentrate, be able to focus. And so that's something that we had to deal with him, is being able to accept that medication was the route that we needed to take. And now with our daughter, finding out that we've got to start that process with her as well. And so kind of like with therapy, I think medication for mental illnesses is another area that we need to look at our personal experience with it and approach each situation on an individual basis. Yeah. And not say that just because something worked for him, it's going to work for her, or just because something didn't work for him, it's not going to work for her. So rather than, look at it and say, well, he had to have medication, so now we have to medicate her. Right. We were able to look at it and say, okay, she is at this stage and we are not going to go that route yet. We're going to try these other things first. Mm-hmm. And so being able to approach it from a unique individual perspective in any given situation.
For sure. Yeah, I agree. So I think we're kind of running the clock here. Let's kind of wrap it up with just a little tidbit on financial health, and then our challenge, takeaway and challenge. So as far as financial health, the one thing that stuck out to me is kind of similar to what we were talking about, physical health. I've heard or seen a post from like Robert Kiyosaki that says rich people don't listen to Dave Ramsey. And it's like just this idea of like, my way is the only way to build wealth. I think Robert Kiyosaki has some really good information. He's said some things that I'm like, I disagree with that. More than anything, I don't like the arrogance that he says everything with. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Dave Ramsey does that too sometimes. So, but like, I've learned things from both of those guys that have really helped me out. Mm-hmm. And my favorite people, I think I've mentioned this before, are Bo and I can't think of the main guy's name right now for some reason, but the Money Guy Show. Uh-huh. And so it's two guys who give advice, and a lot of their episodes are kind of like repeat information, which I think is really good in a lot of ways, because you're like, oh yeah, I've heard them say that before. Now with my deeper understanding of things, like it makes more sense now. It's just they present everything in a really good way, and they're not arrogant, and that's what I love. Yeah. But you can learn something from any financial expert or guru. Like,
absolutely,
be open-minded to like what they're saying might work for you and help you out a lot. And it might not be for you. Like Robert Kiyosaki's all about like entrepreneurship and like, losers have 9-to-5 jobs, like stuff like that. I'm like, okay, like you're a little too arrogant for my taste, but a lot of the things that he says can help, and have helped me. So
So I think the key there is, some people might tell you that you need to give up the joys of life.
Right.
In this stage, right, when your kids are young And some people will tell you that you need to just find ways to make more money and hustle 17 hours a day.
Right.
So I think the key there again is balance, right? For some people, sacrificing those 10 or 15 or 20 years now is the right way so that they can retire and be financially stable when they're 50, 60 years old. To some people, that doesn't sound like a good life.
Some people want to work until they die.
Yeah, some people want to work until they die.
That's fine.
Some people, like me personally, I cannot stand the thought of getting to my 50s and my kids all being grown and out of the house and having zero memories with them.
Yeah. So
to me, like, I would rather spend my money now than have more of it when I retire.
Yeah.
I also don't believe that retirement is even a valid thing anymore. I don't think that people actually what used to constitute what people would call retirement is not a real thing anymore. I think it's a long gone dream, in my opinion, right? But that's my opinion, and that's and what your opinion might be different.
My opinion is different, but that's okay.
And so
I am going to do the traditional retirement thing. I
think that's
a plan to make it happen.
Yeah. So I think that's the key there is we're going to talk about things financially where how to save money, but we can also talk about how can I make more of it.
Yeah.
Because I think that's right. You have to find that balance. You have to find out, do I want to sacrifice now and save everything? Or do I need to find a way to make more so that I can have those experiences now?
Right. And be willing to learn from other people and what they're doing that works for them and that might work for you or might not. And, the moral of the story with this really long episode is be open-minded.
Yeah.
Be willing to consider that your beliefs might not be there.
Yeah.
You might need something that's added to it. You might need something to be taken away, like let go of something that you've held on to.
Yeah.
But just be willing to consider all of the options.
Yeah. So I think, like you said, be willing to consider all of the options, try new things, consider that other people's opinions and beliefs are valid, and also remember that what works for you might not work for somebody else, and don't look down on somebody because they're not doing the same thing as you.
Exactly.
Just because they work out different or do something different doesn't mean they're wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
So
awesome. Yeah. So our challenge, we're going to wrap this up real fast.
Yeah, wrap this up real fast.
For anybody still listening.
The challenge this week is to do something outside of your comfort zone. Whether that is a book from a religion other than what you normally would look at, or whether that's a podcast for financial or mental health, that's something that maybe is different than what you've normally believed. Find something that's outside of your normal scope and your belief system and listen to it and really give it a chance.
Definitely. It's a great challenge. We want to thank you for listening. Don't forget to give us that 5-star review. And
listen once in a while. I guess we try weekly, but
once every week or month or so.
Yeah, once a week, once a month, something like that. We'll try and get it.
But on Monday, that's our consistency.
On Mondays, that's the consistency. Wow, I really struggled with that word. Consistency. But like Perry said at the beginning of the episode, one of our goals this year is really to focus and double down on this vision. So we are working and we have some plans in place to be more active on social media, be more active with our podcast, and keep on going with it.
And join us again next week. Oh, sorry, I skipped, Spotify, iTunes, Google, Amazon, whatever. That's where we are. We're on all the platforms, most of them. Okay, so join us next week. We are going to have a Valentine's episode talking about going on dates.
That's going to be a good one.
It's going to be spicy.
Ooh.
Not really. All right, see ya.
And that's how it does.
That's how it does.